Hi guys, Nomus here. Welcome back to Northam City for episode number 13. In this episode I got a pretty exciting build, an elevated metro station for these lines that's crossing each other at different levels. At first here I'm just doing some measurements for the station tracks and putting them in, and also extending the line with the balloon loop at the end to allow the trains to turn around. And I'll be back in a bit to talk about the inspiration for this station. So for some inspiration today, I want to go over to Brooklyn at a station called Broadway Junction, which you can see here, which is on I think it's in East New York, the neighborhood is called. But I'm not really taking inspiration from the neighborhood, just the station itself. So you can see here, it's different elevated lines crossing over each other. And while it's a bit different, there is some cool features here that I want to take inspiration from. So you have these structures above the station, which is kind of where people can switch between the different lines. You come in from here. This stair is also something I want to see if I can make something similar to this. It's like in a closed stair with some narrow windows kind of following along. And then you have the white shelters above. I have some walls here, which I'm not gonna have because I don't have side platforms like this. I will only have island platforms on my station, because the upper station on my in-game is a quad-track station, and while this is a 3-track station, it seems like. And we have the metal roofs and just tons of different pillars. And then you have over here, you have some kind of trusses where the tracks are kind of like curving around. And that's something that I will see if I can do something similar to that as well. And if you don't know, this is a kind of big interchange station in New York, and that's kind of what I want to do with my station as well. There is actually an underground station here as well, which I think you can connect to inside this building here. But I'm not going to have that for now. Maybe I'll add it later. But for now it's just going to be the 2 different levels of elevated station. So you can see in game when I build kind of which parts I take inspiration from. I wanted to start off doing the structures above the platforms where people walk through to get to the different parts of the station, as this would be the most complex to pull off in game. You can see I started off with some elevated paths. This gives me a reference where I can build it around with different procedural objects before I upgrade the paths to invisible. This whole part of the station above the platforms is just the PO cube with different textures, and I'm stretching the points of it to mold it into what I need. For example, here I make the red metal walls and the metal roof, which is the biggest part of these structures. I'm also adding in some small window props using IMT on the invisible paths a few places. Heading down to street level, I make some paths in the shape of stairs using node controller, and then I place some stair step props with IMT. This will be those stairs enclosed with white walls and short windows that I looked at on Google Earth.
Yeah.
had some issues with OBS during the recording, so that's why it jumps ahead by quite a bit here. Basically parts of some recordings are just frozen and unusable. Not really sure what caused it, but there were some settings I had to change, and it seems to work again now. I recently got a new PC, if you didn't know, which has improved my game performance by quite a lot. But it did mean having to sort out settings in a few different softwares, among others OBS. Anyways, back to what I'm building here. To get the enclosed stairs, I use a PO cube, again with the nice white texture that I stretch to fit around the stairs. I also use a window glass prop that I stretch to fit between the walls. For the roof, I use a roof surface network and fit it above the stairs. It's not identical to Broadway Junction, but I think it comes pretty close, and that was the whole idea. At the end of the platforms, I use some of my go-to props, which are stairs for the railway workers to get down to the tracks, some fences, and the warning signs, which I made to resemble the ones seen on the New York City subway. I'm also filling in with a few electric boxes and trash, as there's a bit of an open concrete space right there. We're jumping ahead here again, and what you didn't see was that I placed a shelter network, which I think was a close fit to what I saw on Google Earth. You can see which network I'm using when I do it again on the upper platforms later on. I'm also placing some signs facing the tracks for line information. This is something you see on the subway in New York. It tells you the line arriving at this track and also the direction it's going, usually telling you which borough it's heading towards. We're now within the borough of Oakland, and the 4 train arriving at these tracks on the station are heading either towards Manhattan or Astoria, depending on the direction. Now I've come to the upper part of the station, where there's a quad track section with express and local tracks. This section of the track carries the 2 train in the inner tracks and the 3 train on the outer tracks. Because it's a big interchange station, I will have both trains stopping here, creating a setup with 2 island platforms. This allows for cross-platform transfers between the 2 and 3 train, going in the same direction. Heading from the lower to upper platforms, I'm just extending the elevated parts and building around it in the same style, with the red metal walls, metal roof and small windows in a few places. It takes a bit of fiddling to fit all the pieces together on the sharp angles, and it's not looking perfect, but I think that just adds to the realism of the station, especially considering it's supposed to be quite an old one. And you can see that it's gonna go above the platforms on the upper level, so that I can make some stairs going down. Then everything is interchangeable and it's easy for the passengers to get around. For some extra details, I'm going back to the stairs and adding some guardrails with IMT, and I'm also adding in a few of the transit authority signs. When I'm adding a turnstile, I'm trying to think realistically of where they would be in real life, so I need to consider how the frames move around the station. They always need to be placed anywhere people can enter a station, and they need to be placed wherever you get access to these platforms. It also made sense to have some ticket machines right before the turnstiles. It's a small detail that really makes it come alive properly, I think. Here you can see the name of the station, which will be Woodhaven Junction Station. The reason for this name is that the station is above a junction along Woodhaven Avenue, as well as the station itself being a junction between elevated lines. This is of course inspired by Broadway Junction. I'm using the text tool in PO to write the station name and the lines that stop there. Because I didn't have any walls along the platforms for a station name sign, I needed to come up with another way to have the station name. I looked at some images of the platforms on Broadway Junction and found a design I took inspiration from. It's basically just some black metal pillars with a sign enclosed within the pillars. That was pretty simple to do with PO, and I just used a sim prop next to it, so I had a reference for the scale of it. stairs going down to the platform from the elevated structure, I'm using an adaptive network compatible path, which gives me the options to add a metal roof above. I'm closing the stair with a rough looking concrete wall, which had the perfect height. This allows me to pull a platform shelter through it without it looking weird visually, and we can imagine there's a gap inside the enclosed stair. I'm also adding some platform details like benches, rail maps and trash cans by using INT on the paths along the platform. This is something I mentioned by looking at Google Earth, and I think it turned into a very cool detail. There's some trusses running below the track where it's merging in after the station. To do this, I converted a truss pillar from the B bridge asset to PO so that I can rotate it and stretch it to fit. It also allows me to color it green, which is a more fitting look and closer to the inspiration. I love this detail so much that I decided to use it underneath the platforms as well, which I think also might be something that you see in the real station. For realism, it's very important that everything on this station is supported in some way. I use the same highline pillars, converted into PO, so I can stretch and scale them to fit perfectly. I'm using them to support both the tracks and platforms, but also the elevated structures that people walk inside to navigate the station. Over here I'm just preparing for stairs that serves as an entrance and exit to the station on this end. I'm using the adaptive network paths by Clues again, so I can also have the nice metal roofs here. And I'm stretching them with one controller so that the width is the same as the 8 meter wide paths that I use inside this red ball structure. There was a lot of wayfinding signs to add in the station to guide people to the different platforms and which lines and directions they go to, as well as a different exit of the station. Inspired by the real stations, I marked the exits by which street they enter to. This isn't inspired by something real, but I thought it would be cool to have some advertisements on the side of this truss supporting the tracks and platforms. Some of the last parts of this build will be building the stairs for the entrance and exits on this end, and these stairs will lead down to Kane Boulevard, as described by the exit signs. I'm trying to make it kind of compact, so I'll do plenty of switchbacks, and it takes a lot of fiddling as I need to work around the pillars and support structures of the whole station, but I get there in the end. I'm digging the final look of these stairs. Of course, once the stairs are built, I'll give them station signs at the entrance, like on the other stairs leading to street level. To support the stairs, I'm using some awesome Metro Bridge pillars, which I convert to PO so I can stretch them to fit the shape of the stairs. I'm pretty sure these pillars come with the classic Metro tracks that I use. For the final details, I add some grunge and graffiti to the walls and a bit of trash around the station. Anyways, that is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it if you made it this far. It's very empty around the station for now, but I still took some cinematics of the station as it stands, and I'll start developing around it in the next video. A like, comment and subscribe would help me in growing the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next one.